Children of the Dust Road. The sun over northern Argentina didn't rise, it exploded. A harsh, blazing fireball that burned the horizon and swallowed the plains in gold. The wind dragged long waves of dust across the cracked highway, turning everything into a moving desert. The road seemed endless, a strip of faded asphalt stretching toward a place no one ever reached. On that road, a beat-up 1997 Ford Ranger coughed its way forward, rattling with every bump. Behind the wheel sat Camila Torres, 32, shoulders tense, one hand tapping the steering wheel like it was a ticking bomb. Her black hair was tied into a messy braid, her eyes hidden behind scratched aviators that couldn't completely block the glare. She had driven for 16 straight hours, and the exhaustion clung to her like heat. In the passenger seat, Rafa, 13, slept with his head resting against the window, mouth slightly open, clutching a little wooden llama carving. His younger sister, Lucía, 9, sat in the back seat cross-legged, humming quietly to herself, braiding and unbraiding the same colorful friendship bracelet she'd worn for months. Camila checked the rearview mirror again. Still empty. For now. The radio hissed with static. No stations. Only the wind. Lucía leaned forward. Cammy, are they still looking for us? Camila hesitated. The truth was a heavy thing to hand a child. But lying never kept them safe. Not anymore. Yes, she said. And they will, until we reach the border. Rafa stirred awake. How far are we? Far enough that you should try to sleep, Camila answered. Close enough that we can't stop. He wiped his eyes and gazed out at the endless desert. What if the truck dies? It won't. But what if it does? Camila gripped the wheel tighter. Then we run. The words hung in the cab like a prophecy. They weren't supposed to be here, on this road, in this truck, carrying secrets worth killing for. 48 hours earlier, they were at home in a humble neighborhood outside Salta. Rafa was feeding the stray dog that always slept under their porch. Lucía was painting her nails with glitter she'd stolen from a market stall. Camila was preparing dinner, listening to an old tango record she always played when she was nervous. Then the phone rang. 3 times, short, fast, urgent. A code. Their father's code. Camila answered. Silence at first. Then a harsh whisper. Escúchame. They found out. Los Hios, protect them. Take the truck. Go north. Do not go to the police. Do not call anyone. The man in the black hat. A crash. A scream. Gunshots. And the line died forever. Camila didn't have time to cry. Didn't have time to think. She grabbed the children and ran. Now, 2 days later, she still tasted smoke and fear every time she swallowed. The Ranger bounced violently over a pothole. Rafa grabbed the dashboard. Are you sure this is the right road? He asked. No, Camila said honestly. But it's the one your father marked on the map. You mean the map with the blood on it? Camila didn't answer. Lucía's voice trembled. Is Papa coming after us? Rafa turned sharply. Lucía. Don't. Camila exhaled slowly. No, mi amor. He can't come right now. Lucía bit her lip, nodding, trying not to cry. The wind howled against the windows. Camila looked at the horizon again. A dust cloud. Far behind. Growing. Her pulse shot up. They were not alone on the road anymore. 30 kilometers later, their engine began making a sound Camila had never heard before, a soft metallic grinding, like gears chewing gravel. Not now. Not here. Rafa leaned forward. What's that sound? Nothing, Camila lied. The sound grew louder. Lucía covered her ears. I don't like it. Camila slowed down, heart hammering. The dust cloud behind them grew larger, taking shape, a vehicle, moving fast, cutting through the desert like a predator. And still, the engine groaned. Seconds later, with a choking cough, the ranger shuddered, and died. No. No, 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 no. Camila slammed the steering wheel, guided the truck to the sandy shoulder, and tried to restart it. Click. Click. Silence. The dust cloud was getting closer. Rafa whispered, "Is that them?" Camila opened the glove box, grabbed the small revolver their father left behind. "Yes," she said. "And we're out of time." She turned to the children. "Listen to me. When I say run, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Follow the dry riverbed down to the rocks. There's a cave. Your father said it's safe." Lucia's breathing became fast and shallow. "Cammy, I'm scared." "I know." Camila touched her cheek. "But I need you to be brave for 5 minutes. Just 5. Rafa clenched his jaw. "And you?" "I'll find you. You promise?" Camila looked him dead in the eyes. "Yes." Even though she didn't know if it was true. The dust cloud became a vehicle, a black SUV with tinted windows. No plates. No hesitation. It slowed 50 meters behind them. Camila raised the gun. The SUV stopped. Dust settled around it like a shroud. A man stepped out. Tall. Black hat. Dark coat. A quiet, deliberate way of moving, like someone who never needed to rush because he never needed to fear anything. Rafa whispered in horror. "That's the man Papa told us about." Camila's heart dropped. The man tipped his hat politely. "Señorita Torres," he said, voice smooth as warm oil. "We have much to talk about." Camila fired. The bullet hit the ground near his boots. He smiled. "Ah. You inherited your father's spirit." Camila's voice was raw. "Kids. Run." They ran. The man didn't even look at them. His eyes stayed on Camila. "You cannot protect them," he said softly. "Not from the truth. Not from us." Camila fired again, this time at his chest. He moved like smoke, stepping aside with unnatural calm. "You will run out of bullets," he said. "But I will not run out of time." Camila backed away slowly, breathing hard. "Why are you doing this?" she shouted. "For the same reason your father did." He tilted his head. "To keep a secret alive." The children were far now, almost reaching the dried riverbed. Camila saw her chance. She turned and sprinted after them. Behind her, the man did not chase. He simply raised his radio. "Bring the others." And the desert answered with engines. Multiple. Fast. Close. The hunt for the children of the dust road had truly begun. The dry riverbed cut through the land like a scar, deep, winding, hidden from the open plains. Rafa and Lucía slid down its sandy slope, Lucía stumbling as her little legs struggled to keep pace. Rafa grabbed her hand, pulling her upright. "Come on. Faster." "I'm trying," she cried, breath hitching. Behind them, Camila's footsteps pounded the earth as she ran, her lungs screaming for air, her heart punching her ribs like a fist. She didn't turn around, she didn't have to. She could hear engines. Multiple. Closer every second. Dust rose behind the trucks like a storm. "Get into the rocks," she shouted. Rafa spotted the jagged outcrop, dark stone emerging from the sandstone like broken teeth. Shadows pooled between them. "There," he pointed. Lucía stumbled again. Rafa pulled her with all the strength his small body had. Camila reached the riverbed and slid down, nearly falling. Gravel tore her palms, but she pushed through the pain. "Rafa, take her into the cave." But what about you? Rafa yelled. I said go. The boy grabbed his sister and disappeared into the rocks, just as the first truck skidded to a stop at the top of the riverbed. Dust and silence. Then. Boom. Several men jumped out, boots hitting the ground heavy and purposeful. Their rifles glinted in the sun. They wore black scarves over their faces, each marked with a single red line. Not police. Not soldiers. Not even regular cartel. These were ghost men, mercenaries from the organization her father warned about. The kind that didn't exist on paper. The kind that erased their targets from the world and left nothing but stories. Camila ducked behind a rock formation as bullets tore into the sand around her. Stone chipped and cracked above her head. The air filled with dust and the sharp metallic smell of gunfire. One of the men shouted. Ella está aquí. Do not let the kids escape. Camila fired back blindly. She heard a grunt, she hit one of them. Not enough. Not nearly enough. A truck engine roared as another vehicle arrived behind the first. Doors slammed. Footsteps. More voices. And then. That voice. Calm. Polite. Terrifying. Spread out, the man in the black hat said. Check every crevice. The Torres children are worth far more alive. Camila froze, heart pounding in her throat. She was running out of bullets. Running out of breath. Running out of time. Inside the cave, Rafa pressed Lucía behind him as they crawled into the darkness. It's okay, Rafa whispered, though it wasn't. Stay behind me. Don't make a sound. Lucía clutched her bracelet tightly, tears smudging the dust on her cheeks. The air inside the cave was cool, damp, smelling of earth and old secrets. The walls narrowed quickly, forcing them to crouch. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Something dripped, water. Something scuttled, an insect. Or something else entirely. Lucía tugged Rafa's shirt. Rafa. I hear something. He listened. Breathing. Close. Not theirs. He swallowed. Who's there? A soft cough came from the darkness. Then a whisper. Don't move. Rafa froze. A pair of faint amber eyes appeared in the blackness. Lucía whimpered. The eyes blinked. Then a woman stepped forward from the shadows, a thin, weathered woman in her late 60s, wrapped in a threadbare poncho, her gray hair braided tightly. Her skin was darkened by sun, her face carved with lines like an old map. She raised a trembling finger to her lips. Shoo. Rafa stammered. Who are you? The woman leaned closer, her voice soft but urgent. My name is Tia Solandra. Your father sent me. Outside, Camila reloaded, her final 3 bullets. The mercenaries were descending into the riverbed, spreading out with military precision. Boots kicked dust up in swirling clouds. The man in the hat stayed above, watching calmly. Waiting. He always waited. He never got his hands dirty unless he had to. Señorita Torres. His voice echoed over the rocks. You are vastly outnumbered. Outgunned. Out of options. Bring me the children, and I will let you walk away. Camila laughed bitterly. You're a terrible liar. A gun clicked behind her. She whirled around, firing. A man dropped. 2 bullets left. A burst of automatic fire exploded from the side. Camila ducked, rolled, the dust exploding where her torso had been half a second earlier. She sprinted deeper into the riverbed, zigzagging between rocks. The mercenaries gave chase. She hit the ground behind a fallen boulder, her chest heaving. She peeked out to see the man in the black hat slowly descending the slope. He spoke into his radio again. Seal the north end. They're headed toward the cave. Camila's blood turned cold. They knew about the cave. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Only one person knows the path inside the rocks. If you reach her, the children survive. Tia Solandra. If the mercenaries reached the cave before her children found the woman, it would all be over. Camila pressed her head against the rock, fighting the rising panic. She had to get to them. Now. She crawled from cover and sprinted across open ground. Bullets chased her. Dust erupted at her heels. The sun turned everything into blinding gold. She used the terrain, diving behind ridges, rolling into depressions, sliding down the riverbed's deepest cut. Her legs burned. Her lungs screamed. But she pushed harder. For the children. For her father. For survival. She reached the mouth of the cave just as two mercenaries rounded the corner behind her. Camila didn't think. She fired both her remaining bullets. One mercenary fell. The second recoiled, but kept coming. Empty gun. Camila swung it like a hammer, smashing the metal into the man's jaw. He staggered. She kicked him in the throat. He dropped, choking. More footsteps approached. Camila dove into the cave's shadows. The darkness swallowed her whole. Inside, Rafa pulled Lucía behind him as Tia Solandra motioned for them to move deeper. "The men who follow you are not men," she whispered. "They are shadows. They will not stop." Lucía sniffed. "Cami is coming." Solandra nodded. "She will. But not alone." Rafa swallowed. "What do you mean?" The old woman turned toward the deeper tunnels. "Your father woke something he should not have touched. And now the desert itself remembers." Rafa didn't understand. But he didn't have time to ask. Because behind them, a faint echo of footsteps entered the cave. Camila? Or something else? Rafa's heart pounded. Tia Solandra raised a finger. "Run." They did. And the cave swallowed all light behind them. The dust tasted like metal when Tomás ran. He dragged his little sister by the hand, stumbling across the abandoned gas station lot as the last sliver of sunlight bled across the horizon. The road behind them, Ruta 40, stretched endlessly, carved into the desert like a scar. The only proof of life was the sound of an old truck engine far in the distance, or maybe too close. Sophia squeezed his fingers. "Tommy, do you think they're still coming?" Her voice cracked like dry earth. He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to protect her, but because lying felt worse than silence. The men would come. Los Carranchos didn't stop until they had taken everything. The kids reached the service station wall and crouched beneath the broken window. Inside, the shelves were ransacked, snapped broom handles, half-crushed soda cans, an overturned steel rack. Whoever had come before them left in a hurry. Tomás whispered, "Stay here. Don't move unless I say." Sophia nodded, clutching her backpack, the only thing she saved from their home before it burned. He slipped inside through the shattered frame. The air smelled of oil and heat, of something recently disturbed. He grabbed a rusted crowbar from the floor and scanned the dark corners of the store. A gust of desert wind rattled the metal sign outside. Then, footsteps. Soft. Slow. Controlled. He raised the crowbar, but a voice cut through the darkness. "Calm down, Chico. If I wanted trouble, I'd already have it." A man stepped forward, hands lifted. Weathered face, sunburned skin, long hair tied loosely at the back. He wore a dusty denim jacket and the kind of confidence that came from surviving too many years on the road. "Who are you?" Tomás asked. "Name's Rami." The man looked the boy up and down. "You running from someone?" Tomás hesitated. But the truck engine in the distance whined louder. Rami noticed. "Los Carranchos?" Tomas tightened his grip on the crowbar. Maybe. Rami exhaled sharply, like he'd heard the name one time too many. Well, then you're lucky. I hate those bastards. He walked past Tomas and peeked outside, whistling low. They're close. You got minutes. Maybe less. Tomas felt his chest knot. My sister. She with you? He nodded. Rami's expression softened, not with pity, but with recognition. Grab her. Now. Both of you, come with me. I know a road they don't. Why would you help us? Tomas demanded. Rami shrugged. Because once, a long time ago, someone should have helped me. The engine roared closer. Sofia peeked inside, her eyes wide with fear. Rami motioned. Let's move. You want to survive the night or not? Tomas hesitated, then grabbed Sofia's hand and followed. They ran behind the station where an old Ford F-100 was parked. Paint sun faded, a cracked windshield, but the engine was warm. Too warm. You were waiting, Tomas said. Rami smirked. Let's say I've been expecting trouble. He opened the passenger door. Get in. Quick. As the kids climbed inside, the desert road behind them filled with swirling dust. Headlights appeared, 3 trucks. Rami cursed. They brought the hunting crew. Damn it. He slammed into the driver's seat, turned the key. The engine growled alive. Tomas, Sofia whispered, trembling, is this safe? He squeezed her hand. It's safer than staying. Rami shifted into gear just as rifle shots cracked through the air, sparking off the truck's tailgate. He floored the accelerator. The truck fishtailed on loose gravel, then shot forward onto a narrow dirt path that disappeared into the desert. Behind them, the Caranchos gave chase. Gunfire echoed across the emptiness like thunder. Rami gritted his teeth. Hold on, kids. The night's about to get ugly. The Ford F-100 hurled forward, rattling like its bolts might shear off at any second. The desert night swallowed them whole. Only the moon lit their path, fractured by dust clouds rising from the tires. Behind them, Los Caranchos trucks tore through the dirt road, headlights jittering like hungry eyes. Sofia covered her ears as another gunshot cracked through the air. A bullet punched through the rear window, spraying glass over the back seat. She yelped and curled against Tomas's shoulder. It's okay, he whispered, though his voice shook. Rami spat a curse and yanked the wheel. Those idiots don't know this road. If we make it to the quebrada, they'll lose us. What's a quebrada? Sofia asked, trembling. A canyon, Tomas said before Rami could answer. He remembered it from geography class, the rare moments when their father would point at old maps with gentle pride. A deep one. Rami nodded. That's right. And there's only one bridge. One tiny-ass bridge made of wood and bad decisions. You mean the bridge is dangerous? Tomas asked. Rami grinned, eyes blazing with adrenaline. Kid, everything out here is dangerous. But the bridge? That's where they can't follow. A spotlight from the lead Carancho truck swept across the desert and locked onto them. Down! Rami barked. The beam singed across the cab. Gunfire stuttered, rapid, ugly, intentional. Tomas shielded Sofia with his body. Why do they want us? She cried. Rami exhaled sharply. You kids aren't carrying money. So it's either leverage, or revenge. Tomas felt ice crawl up his spine. Revenge. He saw their burned home again. Their father's silhouette in the flames. The tattooed man standing outside with a shotgun, the same vulture emblem carved into the stock. The leader of Los Caranchos. Rami noticed Tomas's expression. You know why they're after you, don't you? Tomas didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth was a knot too heavy to breathe around. Rami adjusted the mirror. Just so you know, whatever they want with you, it's not something you walk away from. Tomas swallowed hard. Then we won't let them take us. Sofia squeezed his arm with surprising strength. Not again. Rami's jaw tightened. Good. You're survivors. I like survivors. The truck barreled over a rise, and suddenly the land dropped sharply. A narrow cliffside road snaked downward into a black void. The quebrada, Rami muttered. Hold tight. He downshifted. The truck lurched violently, tires skidding on loose stones. The canyon walls rose like jagged teeth around them. The path shrank to barely wider than the truck itself. One wrong move and they'd plunge into darkness. Above them, the Carrancho trucks reached the ridge, engines snarling, guns flashing. This is suicide. Tomas shouted. It's only suicide if I miss, Rami growled. Bridge is ahead. The canyon funneled into a wooden structure suspended above a bottomless gorge. It creaked in the wind, planks shifting like loose bones. Sofia gasped. We're not driving over that. We are if you want to live, Rami said. The Carranchos descended fast, far faster than the path allowed. One truck clipped the cliff wall, scraping sparks into the night. Tomas braced himself. Can it hold us? Rami laughed, loud and reckless. Hell if I know. The wooden bridge loomed, narrow, crooked, swaying gently as if breathing. Rami floored it. The truck shot forward. Planks bucked beneath the tires. The suspension screamed. Half the board snapped, dropping into the abyss. But the Ford made it across. Just as the first Carrancho truck thundered onto the bridge behind them. A crack like lightning split through the canyon. The bridge gave way. The truck behind them plummeted into darkness, headlights spinning like falling stars. Rami didn't slow. Not even when the echo of destruction faded into silence. Sofia was shaking. Tommy, that could have been us. Tomas pulled her closer. But it wasn't. Rami finally eased off the gas. Kids, we bought time. Not freedom. What do you mean? Tomas asked. Los Carranchos don't quit. Not when blood is involved. He looked at them in the mirror. So if you want to survive what comes next, you better start telling me the truth. Tomas's stomach sank. Sofia stared at him, terrified. Rami asked quietly. What did they think your father stole from them? Tomas didn't answer. Not at first. The desert wind hissed through the cracked windows of the old Ford, carrying the smell of dust and metal and burning rubber. The adrenaline was slowly bleeding out of their systems, leaving a hollow ache behind. Sofia's small hand slid into Tomas's. Rami waited. Eyes on the road. Voice low, steady. Tomas. If you want me to keep you alive, I need the truth. Tomas breathed out slowly, like forcing out poison. They think my father stole something. Rami raised an eyebrow. Yeah, you said that. What? Not money. Not drugs. His throat tightened. Information. Rami's knuckles tightened on the wheel. What kind of information? Tomas stared at the floorboard. He worked at a logistics company outside Córdoba. He had access to export records, container manifests, truck routes. Rami frowned. That's normal work. It is. Tomas nodded. Unless some of those containers don't exist. Understanding flashed across Rami's face. Los Carranchos are moving people, Tomas whispered. Women, kids. Hiding them in fake containers. Using the Pampas roads at night. Sofia started crying silently. Tomas held her close. Rami muttered a curse so dark it felt like the temperature dropped. Your father found out. He didn't mean to. Tomas's voice cracked. He brought home the wrong ledger. I saw it first. I asked him what it was. He took it, and he looked terrified. I had never seen him like that. Sophia whispered, he said we had to be careful. Careful? Rami scoffed. Kid, when cartels realize you know their business, careful stops being an option. Tomas's eyes darkened. That night, he told us to pack. Said we'd stay with Aunt Mariella. But before he could start the car, his breath hitched. Sophia squeezed his arm hard. She remembered too. The house blew up. Rami asked softly. No, Tomas shook his head. They burned it. With torches. Like old times. Like they enjoyed it. And your father? He put us in the crawl space under the kitchen. Tomas swallowed. Hard. He locked us in. Told us not to make a sound. And then? Rami asked. We heard shouting. Him yelling. Then gunshots. Then, nothing. Silence. Only the hum of the engine filled the cab. Rami didn't speak for a long moment. Then. Kids, your father didn't steal anything from them. His voice carried a strange gravity. You say information, but that ledger wasn't just evidence. It was leverage. What do you mean? Tomas asked. If he knew where the trafficking routes were, he could sell that to another cartel. Or to the police. Or the government. Or. My father wasn't like that. Tomas snapped. I'm not saying he was, Rami replied calmly. I'm saying Los Carranchos think he was. Tomas's breath froze. They think he still has the ledger, Rami continued. And they think you two know where it is. Sophia whispered, almost too quiet to hear. But we don't. Rami gave a grim smile. That won't stop them. The truck rattled over an uneven patch of road. The headlights illuminated a road sign, rusted, bullet-riddled. San Lucas, 68 kilometers. Mendoza, 214 kilometers. Where are we going? Tomas asked. Somewhere they won't look, Rami said. An old mining town past San Lucas. I have friends there. Friends like you? Tomas asked. Rami chuckled. Worse. Another silence fell. Then Tomas asked the question he had been too afraid to ask. Rami, my father. Do you think he's? Rami didn't answer immediately. He ran a hand over his face. Exhaled. Finally. Kid, if he's alive, he's running. Same as you. He glanced at Tomas in the mirror. And if I were Los Carranchos? I'd want the leverage alive. You mean, Tomas whispered, hope and fear mixing in his voice. I mean they might be keeping him somewhere. Sophia gasped. Then we have to save him, she cried. Tomas tightened his fist. We will. Rami smirked. That's the spirit. Then his voice hardened. But first. You two stay alive long enough to make that decision. Tomas nodded. But before he could speak, a low rumble rolled behind them. Rami checked the mirror. His face went pale. What is it? Sophia asked. Rami whispered. They sent motorcycles. Tomas turned. 2 distant headlights. Then 4. Then 8. Moving fast. Hungry. Coming straight for them across the dust road. The dust storm behind them rose like a living thing, an angry beast sprinting across the pampas. Rami slammed his foot on the accelerator. The Ford growled, engine straining, coughing, vibrating like it might tear itself apart, but it pushed forward, climbing speed. Sophia clung to Tomas, eyes wide. Are they coming for us? She whispered. They're coming to end us, Rami muttered. Tomas twisted in his seat, staring through the cracked rear window. 9 motorcycles. Black helmets. Black jackets. Rifles slung across their backs. Los Caranchos fast attack hunters. Men who didn't take prisoners unless ordered. And today, they weren't ordered. Can we outrun them? Tomas asked. Rami shook his head. Not in this dinosaur. But we're not going to outrun them. Sophia stared at him in confusion. What do you mean? Rami flashed a grin that didn't reach his eyes. We're going to survive them. He jerked the wheel. The Ford swerved violently off the main road and plunged into a field of dry brush. Dust exploded around them like a bomb. A trail of dead grass whipped against the windows. The motorcycles followed immediately. They fanned out, coordinated, wolf-like. Tomas felt his pulse spike. They're going to catch us. Good, Rami said calmly. Let them get close. Sophia's voice shook. Why would we want that? Because close means predictable. He reached under his seat. Tomas heard metal scrape. A handgun. And not just any handgun. A heavy, military-grade, matte black pistol with a scratched serial number. You're armed. Tomas choked. Rami smirked. Kid, you don't last on these roads by smiling politely. He handed the gun to Tomas. Tomas froze. Me? Yeah, Rami said. You. I've never shot anything. Today's your lucky day. Rami checked the mirror. Safety's off. Just aim and pray. Sophia looked horrified. Tomas, no. Tomas's hands trembled. I don't wanna. Rami barked. Then they're going to kill your sister first. Everything inside Tomas snapped into focus. His shaking stopped. His eyes hardened. He gripped the gun with both hands and turned in his seat. The motorcycles were close now, maybe 30 meters back. Engines roaring like dragons. Dust clouds swirling behind them. The first rider lifted a rifle. Tomas aimed. Shoot! Rami roared. Tomas squeezed the trigger. The pistol bucked hard. The gunshot sounded like thunder inside the truck. The bullet missed, but it startled the rider. His bike swerved. Again. Tomas fired a second time. Sparks burst from a motorcycle frame. The rider yelled, losing control. He skidded sideways and tumbled into the dirt in a blur of metal and screams. Sophia gasped. Rami smirked. See? Natural talent. More shots. More engines. The hunters were enraged now. One rider pulled ahead, leveling his rifle. Rami shouted. Tomas, down. Tomas and Sophia ducked. A burst of automatic gunfire shredded the rear window, spraying glass across the cab. Sophia screamed. Rami swore. They're trying to cripple the truck. He jerked the wheel sharply left. Then right. Then left again. The Ford fishtailed, bouncing violently over uneven ground. The kids clung to the seats for dear life. The motorcycles tightened formation. 3 on the left. 3 on the right. 2 behind. Tomas lifted the pistol again. Keep them off us. Rami shouted. A rider on the right leaned in with a shotgun. Tomas fired. The bullet slammed into the shotgun barrel, blowing it from the rider's hands. The gunner yelled as the weapon spun away, then Tomas fired again, hitting the front tire. The bike flipped. Sophia covered her eyes. Rami grinned savagely. Kid, remind me never to play you in darts. Another roar behind them. One of the hunters had pulled up so close Tomas could see the man's eyes through the visor, cold, furious. The rider swung a machete. Jesus! Tomas yelled. The blade scraped the metal of the truck door with a deafening screech. Sophia cried out. Tomas, she screamed. He aimed point blank. The gun clicked. Empty. No, no, no. The rider raised the machete again. Rami yelled. Hold on. He slammed the brakes. The world lurched forward. The motorcycle shot past the truck uncontrollably, and slammed into a rock outcrop. Rider and machine exploded into fragments. Sophia sobbed into her hands. Tomas panted, shaking violently. Rami hit the gas again. For down, he muttered. 5 left. The hunters regrouped, and now they were furious. Rami looked ahead. Eyes narrowing. The terrain changed, flat dust turning into rising hills of red stone. We're close, he whispered. Close to what? Tomas asked. Rami smiled a dangerous smile. Home field advantage. The red stone hills rose out of the earth like jagged teeth, dry, sun-baked, ancient. The Ford roared up the incline, tires spitting gravel behind them. Rami leaned forward over the wheel, eyes razor-sharp. Almost there, he muttered. Behind them, the motorcycle struggled with the sudden slope. Engines snarled, tires skidded, dust clouds billowed. But they were still coming, relentless as wolves. Tomas wiped sweat from his forehead. What's over the hill? Another town? Rami laughed darkly. No town. No people. Just a place where the land listens to me. Sophia blinked, terrified and confused. The land listens to you. Something like that, Rami said, accelerating. They crested the ridge. Tomas's breath caught. The other side wasn't a slope. It was a drop. A massive quarry lay below them, abandoned long ago. Rusted metal structures, collapsed scaffolding, and dunes of red dust shaped by decades of wind. The entire pit looked like an arena carved out by giants. A dead end. Tomas panicked. Rami, there's no way out down there. There's one, Rami said. And then, smiling dangerously. But it's not for the faint of. Gunfire exploded. Bullets stitched the driver's side door. One round nicked Rami's shoulder. He hissed, swerved, and nearly lost control. Rami. You're bleeding. Sophia cried. Just a scratch, he barked. More engines screamed behind them. The hunters crested the ridge, one after another, black silhouettes against the sun. Tomas felt his stomach drop. They weren't slowing down. Rami muttered. They're going to follow us into the quarry. Tomas swallowed. Is that the plan? No, Rami said. That's the trap. He yanked the wheel hard right. The Ford barreled down a narrow switchback path carved into the quarry wall. Rocks tumbled behind the tires. The motorcycles followed tight and aggressive. Dust filled the air. Rami pointed ahead. See that? He nodded at a huge rusted crane lying on its side across the quarry floor. That's our exit. Tomas squinted. It's blocking the way. Exactly. Sophia gasped. You're going to crash into it? No, Rami said calmly. I'm going under it. Tomas's eyes widened. There's no space. Yup. You're insane. Probably. They hit the quarry bottom. Dust exploded around them. The Ford raced toward the fallen crane. A narrow gap existed beneath the twisted metal, maybe half a meter higher than the truck's hood. Tomas screamed. We won't fit. Rami shouted. Everybody down. The kids ducked. The world became noise. Metal screeched. Dry earth sprayed. The roof scraped the crane hard enough to shear paint off like skin. Sparks rained down. Then they burst through the other side. The Ford fishtailed and skidded to a stop. Silence. Heartbeats. Dust settling like smoke. Tomas gasped for air. Sofia clutched his arm, trembling. Rami exhaled deeply. Perfect. Then a horrific metallic crash snapped their heads up. One motorcycle tried to follow. It slammed full speed into the crane with a bone-crushing, bike-shattering impact. The explosive sound echoed across the quarry like thunder. Another motorcycle skidded sideways, flipping end over end. A third slid beneath the crane. But the rider was too tall. The steel broke him like a twig. Sofia buried her face in Tomas's chest, sobbing. Tomas shut his eyes. Rami stared grimly. 3 left, he said quietly. The remaining riders regrouped on the far side of the crane, unable to cross. For the first time, they hesitated. Rami shifted the truck into gear. We're not done. Not yet. He pointed to a narrow canyon opening at the far edge of the quarry. That's our road. Tomas whispered. And what's at the end of it? Rami didn't smile this time. His voice dropped to something faintly haunted. A place I hoped I'd never have to return to. The canyon swallowed them like a throat of stone. Narrow. Dark. Winding. Red rock walls rose on both sides, towering high enough to block the sun. The Ford's engine echoed through the passage, each vibration bouncing around them like whispers. Sofia looked out the window, voice trembling. Rami, where are we going? To a safe place, he said. But Tomas heard the hesitation. The quiet weight behind the words. Safe for us, Tomas said, or safe for them? Rami didn't answer. The canyon tightened. The truck barely fit between the walls now. Dust swirled in streaks behind them like ghost trails. They won't follow us through here, Rami muttered. Why not? Tomas asked. Because they know what's on the other side. Sofia swallowed. What's on the other side? Rami's hands tightened on the wheel. A ghost town, he said quietly. El Silencio. The name hung in the air like a cold breath. Tomas frowned. I've never heard of it. No one talks about it, Rami said. Certain towns, the map forgets them. Why? Sofia asked, barely whispering. Rami rubbed the scar on his forearm, a nervous habit Tomas had never seen before. Because bad things happened there. And then worse things came looking. The canyon opened. And the town appeared. A collection of sun-bleached buildings stood in the middle of a red, cracked basin. The structures were collapsing, half swallowed by sand. A church tower leaned sideways like a drunk. A school bus lay on its side, windows broken, rust blooming across its body. No sound. No wind. No birds. Just emptiness. Sofia whispered. It looks dead. Rami nodded. That's because it is. The Ford rolled slowly down the dirt path leading into the abandoned streets. Tomas scanned the buildings, alert. What happened here? Rami hesitated. Once. It was a mining town. Families lived here. Kids went to school. Then Los Carranchos came through about 15 years ago. Someone in the town reported them to the police. The cartel made an example. Tomas's stomach clenched. They killed people. Rami nodded. Everyone. Sofia covered her mouth, horrified. And you were here? Tomas asked. Rami didn't answer. But his silence said enough. He drove to the center of the ghost town, an open square with a dried fountain, now filled with sand. He parked. We'll rest here, he said. They won't come tonight. Not here. Tomas stepped out of the truck. The heat felt heavier in this place, like the ground exhaled misery. Sophia grabbed his hand, shivering despite the sun. "Nothing's alive," she whispered. "Maybe that's why it's safe," he replied. But even Tomas didn't believe his own words. Underscore 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 underscore. Rami opened the truck's back compartment and pulled out a black duffel bag. Inside were supplies, water, canned food, a flare gun, old bandages, a battered radio with a cracked screen. Tomas raised an eyebrow. "You planned this?" Rami tossed him a water bottle. "I plan everything." Sophia sat on the fountain's edge, kicking at the sand. Tomas looked around. "Are we really going to sleep here?" "Yes," Rami said. "Because tomorrow morning, we start searching for your father." Sophia's head snapped up. "You found something?" Rami shook his head. "No. But the ledger your father took. If he hid it somewhere he trusted. Somewhere no one would think to look." Tomas frowned. "And that means this town." "It means Mendoza," Rami corrected. "This town is just the last safe stop before we go in." Tomas was about to speak, when a soft sound cut through the silence. A metal clink. Then another. Like someone walking slowly, dragging something. Sophia froze. "Rami," she whispered. Rami's expression sharpened instantly. He raised a finger. Silence. The sound came again. Clink. 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 From the far end of the street. Behind a row of gutted houses. Tomas's heart thudded. "Is it them?" Rami shook his head slowly. "No. They wouldn't come here." The sound grew louder. Closer. Steady. Not running. Not stalking. Walking. Dragging. Rami reached into the duffel bag and drew a long knife from a leather sheath. "Tomas," he said softly. "Get Sophia behind the truck." Tomas grabbed Sophia's hand and pulled her back slowly. Sophia whispered. "Rami, who is it?" Rami took one step forward, eyes locked on the approaching shadow. He inhaled deeply. And whispered. "Someone I prayed was dead." The figure stepped into view. And Tomas felt the world tilt. Because the man walking toward them, sunburned, limping, covered in dust, was someone he knew. Someone he had thought he had lost forever. His throat tightened. "Papa?" The headlights carved a narrow tunnel through the drifting dust as the old Peugeot rattled deeper into the vast nowhere of La Pampa. Mateo's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Every bump in the road vibrated up into his shoulders, but it wasn't the terrain that made him tense, it was the silence in the back seat. Lucía hadn't said a word in over an hour. She sat curled near the window, her knees pulled to her chest, clutching the red cloth bracelet that used to belong to their mother. Her dark hair hid most of her face, but every so often Mateo could see her lips trembling, her eyes burning with the fear neither of them wanted to name. "Road's getting worse," Mateo said, just to slice the quiet. No answer. Only the deep, endless plain stretching beyond them like an ocean of dry grass. He tried again. "We'll reach General Acha before sunrise. We can get fuel, maybe food. Maybe a real map, not this." He lifted the crumpled, dirt-smudged tourist map they'd stolen from the abandoned gas station. Half the routes didn't even exist anymore. Lucía finally spoke, her voice thin. "Do you think they're still following us?" Mateo didn't want to lie. He also didn't want to tell her the truth, that the black pickup they had seen back in Bahia Blanca belonged to the same people who burned down their house, the same people who dragged their father away one screaming night, the same people who sent the message. "The road ends with you. Don't run." "I don't know," he said quietly. "But we're not stopping." Lucía nodded, hugging herself tighter. The radio hissed with static. Mateo turned the dial, hoping for music, news, a voice, anything to feel less alone. After a few seconds, a faint tango melody emerged, crackling as if dragged from 50 years ago. It felt like a ghost sitting in the car with them. Then Lucía whispered, "I saw Mama." Mateo's breath caught. "In the dream again?" "No. In the fields. Just now." She pointed to the darkness outside. She was walking. Like she used to when she waited for Papa to come home. Mateo slowed the car, staring at the empty plain. Nothing but shadows and wind. "You're tired, Lucy. You're imagining." "No," she said, firmer now. She looked at me. She tried to say something. Mateo swallowed hard. He hadn't told her what the man in the pickup shouted before the fire swallowed their house. "Your mother talked. And your father will too." He pressed the gas. They drove for another half hour before the road curved toward a faint cluster of lights, a lonely truck stopped glowing like a dying ember. A neon sign flickered, El Camino Nocturno. "We'll stop for 5 minutes," Mateo said. "You stay inside the car." Lucía grabbed his sleeve. "Don't leave me." He hesitated. The fear in her eyes pulled at something deep inside him, something older than the road, older than the danger. "Okay," he said. "We go together." They stepped inside. The truck stop was nearly empty, only an old man wiping a counter and a radio murmuring football commentary. A thick smell of fried empanadas and gasoline hung in the air. The man looked up. His eyes narrowed, studying them more than customers usually deserved. "You kids look like you've been dragged behind a horse," he said. "Just traveling," Mateo replied. "Need fuel. Maybe directions." The old man leaned forward. "Where you headed?" Mateo hesitated a second too long. The man noticed. "That way leads nowhere. Dust and dead cows," he said. "But if you're running, keep running. Don't look back." Lucía froze. "Why would you say that?" The man pointed his chin toward the window. A black pickup had just pulled into the dirt outside. Mateo's heart cracked open. "They're here," Lucía whispered. The old man didn't move. "Go out the back," he said quietly. "There's a service door that leads to the fields. The road bends south 2 kilometers from here. If you're lucky, you'll lose them in the tall grass." "Why help us?" Mateo asked. The man lifted his shirt. A red cloth bracelet hung from his belt, identical to the one on Lucía's wrist. "Because your mother once helped me." Lucía gasped. Mateo grabbed her hand. "We have to run." The pickup door slammed outside. Voices. Heavy boots. The sound of men who didn't care who heard them. The old man pushed a key across the counter. "Go. Now." Mateo and Lucía sprinted toward the back as the truck stop door creaked open behind them. They could hear the men enter. Then a single voice, deep, familiar, ice cold. "Find the children. Bring them to me alive." Mateo shoved open the service door, and the night swallowed them whole. The tall grass swallowed them as soon as they stepped past the service door. The night was cold, the wind sharp, carrying the scent of dust and something metallic, maybe fear, maybe fate. Mateo kept his head low, pulling Lucía by the wrist as they pushed through the pale blades that rose above their shoulders. Behind them, muffled voices in the truck stop grew sharper. "They went this way. Spread out. Flashlights on." Lights sliced through the darkness, thin, white beams sweeping the plains like hungry wolves searching for movement. Mateo dropped to a crouch and whispered, "Stay low. Keep quiet." Lucía nodded, tears streaking dust down her cheeks. "Mateo, do you think Papa is still alive?" He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, because the truth was a storm he couldn't open in front of her. Instead, he squeezed her hand and kept moving. A shout cracked through the air. "There! In the grass!" Lucía froze, but Mateo didn't. He grabbed her waist and pushed forward, crawling, forcing them deeper into the field. The tall grass rustled violently. Flashlights stabbed closer. "Run," Mateo whispered. They burst from the grass into a narrow dirt path carved by old tractor wheels. The moonlight hit them like a spotlight. Behind them, figures emerged from the grass, 3 men, armed, running fast. Mateo's lungs burned. The dirt road sloped downward, curving around a cluster of abandoned farm buildings, rusted silos, crumbling walls, a collapsed barn. A place forgotten by everyone, except maybe fate. "We hide there," Mateo said. They raced toward the barn, but Lucía suddenly yanked his arm. "Mateo, look!" A figure stood on the barn's broken roofline. A woman's silhouette. Hair whipping in the wind. Dress fluttering. Staring straight at them. Lucía gasped. "It's her. Mateo, it's Mama." But the figure vanished, dissolving into the dark like a memory that refused to stay still. The shouts grew closer. Mateo forced himself not to look back. "It's your mind playing tricks. Lucy, please, move." They slipped inside the collapsed barn just as the first of the armed men reached the yard. The wooden beams groaned as they pressed themselves into a pocket of shadow beneath a fallen plank. "Fan out," a voice ordered. "They can't be far." Bootsteps crunched. Flashlights flicked across broken walls. Lucía trembled uncontrollably. Mateo put his finger to her lips. Then, a deep metallic groan echoed from the far side of the barn. The men stopped. What was that? Mateo's heart slammed against his ribs. He didn't make that sound, and neither did Lucía. Another groan, louder this time. The sound of something enormous shifting. A chain being pulled. Then a slam. The men raised their weapons. What the hell is in there? Before they could advance, a figure stepped from the shadows at the barn's entrance. The old man from the truck stop. "Looking for someone?" he asked, voice calm as stone. The men froze. "You," one hissed. "You helped them." The old man smiled, a tired, broken smile. "You shouldn't have touched her family." The largest of the men raised his gun. But the old man lifted something in his hand. A flare. He struck it. Red light exploded in the darkness. The barn erupted into chaos, men shouting, smoke wafting, shadows tearing across the walls like demons. Mateo grabbed Lucía. "Now, Lucy. Run." She didn't hesitate. They darted out through a gap in the rotting boards as the flare's blinding red glow swallowed the barn behind them. Outside, the plains stretched endlessly, a dark sea waiting to swallow 2 more wandering souls. They ran until their legs buckled. Until the world blurred. Until the only sound left was their breathing, and the distant roar of an engine turning back toward the road. They collapsed on a slope overlooking a deserted stretch of highway. Lucía whispered, "He saved us, but he's alone." Mateo stared at the horizon, jaw tight. "He bought us time. And we're not wasting it." Ahead, the highway shimmered like a dark scar cutting through the earth. Behind them, a faint red glow rose into the night sky. The barn was burning. The wind grew stronger as they reached the edge of the highway, a cold, dry gust rolling across the Argentine plains like the breath of something ancient. The sky above them had darkened into a bruised violet, storm clouds gathering without sound, as if even thunder didn't dare speak aloud. Mateo scanned the road. Empty. Dead. A two-lane strip of cracked asphalt stretching toward nothing and everything. Lucía wrapped her arms around herself. What now? Mateo didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing, the truck stop, the murderers, the old man, the flare, the fire. And beyond all of it, a single name burning like a wound. Torres. If they found Papa, if he was even still alive. Torres would be the one holding the knife. Mateo exhaled. We keep moving north. Toward Córdoba. Someone there will know something. Lucía frowned. How do you know? Mateo hesitated. Because he saw something he didn't tell her. Because inside the old man's jacket, right before he lit the flare, Mateo had seen a patch, a faded insignia of a trucking cooperative called Los Comandantes del Viento. And etched below it, Córdoba Ruta 19. The old man knew where they needed to go. We just keep going, Mateo said. A faint rumble broke the silence. Lucía stiffened. Car. Truck, Mateo corrected, because the sound was deeper, rolling, aggressive. They scrambled off the asphalt and down into the ditch, their bodies pressed flat against dirt and dried weeds. The rumble grew louder, headlights cresting the distant horizon like twin suns rising from the earth. But something was wrong about the way the lights moved. They weren't steady. They swerved, slow at first, then violently. The truck veered left. Then right. Then right again, too hard. A horn bellowed. Tires screamed. The truck fishtailed across the road, sparks flying as metal scraped asphalt. It slid sideways, toppled, and rolled into the field with a deafening crash, tearing a trail of fire across the dry grass. Lucía clamped her hands over her ears. Mateo! Stay down. Flames caught quickly, swallowing the grass like hungry mouths. The overturned truck groaned, the metallic death cry of something that once had purpose. Mateo watched, breath held, as a door burst open. A man crawled out. Coughing. Bleeding. Armed. He staggered to his feet and looked around, dazed, then directly toward the ditch where they hid. Mateo's heart stopped. The man lifted his gun. Salgan, he screamed. I know you're there. Lucía whimpered. Mateo squeezed her hand. Run when I say. Don't look back. Mateo. Don't argue. The gunman limped closer. 10 meters. 8. 5. Mateo burst from the ditch, sprinting straight at the man. Hey! The man swung the gun toward him. But his grip was weak. His aim shaking. His breath slashed with pain. The shot fired wide, disappearing into the plains. Mateo slammed into him, knocking the weapon loose. It skidded across the ground. The man gasped, clutching a stab wound in his side. They left me, those bastards left me. He collapsed onto his knees. Lucía emerged cautiously, trembling. Mateo grabbed the man by the collar. Who left you? Torres. The man laughed bitterly, blood spilling from his lips. You don't get it, you don't know what's coming. What's coming? Mateo demanded. The man coughed, shaking violently. Torres, he's not the one you should fear. He. His eyes widened, not at Mateo, but at something behind him. Madre. Mateo turned. A wall of flames, massive, alive, was racing through the dry grass, fed by wind and fuel spilled from the wrecked truck. A wildfire, sudden and ravenous, sweeping straight toward them. Lucía screamed. Mateo grabbed her wrist. Move! The dying man's voice rose in a final, broken cry. You can't escape the dust road. The fire surged. The truck's fuel tank detonated with a thunderous blast. The world turned white. And then everything was running, burning, roaring. Mateo held Lucía as they sprinted blindly through the dark plains, the inferno chasing them like a living monster with burning teeth. And far behind them, through the veil of fire and smoke, engines rumbled again, more trucks, more men, more hunters. The dust road was awake. And it wanted its children back. The firestorm swallowed half the horizon before they stopped running. Mateo's lungs burned. Lucía collapsed beside a fallen fence post, coughing hard, eyes wide and glassy. Smoke still curled over the plains behind them like a black serpent twisting in the sky. They were alive, barely. The wildfire raged where the truck had exploded, its glow flickering across the vast empty fields like the pulse of a dying world. Lucía wiped her eyes. Mateo, who were those men? He didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was terrible. Because he had recognized the color of their jackets, even beneath the soot and firelight. Black and dust brown. The same as the men who took their father. Mateo stared at the fire. They work for Torres. Lucía's voice trembled. So, that means. Papa was with them. Mateo clenched his jaw. Not with them. Taken by them. And the man who died, she swallowed. What did he mean? We can't escape the dust road. Mateo didn't know. But he felt the meaning. It wasn't a road. It was a system. A network. An entire underworld carved into the highways, rest stops, abandoned gas stations, storage yards, illegal transport routes. A labyrinth that swallowed families whole. He put his hand gently on Lucía's shoulder. We keep moving north. Córdoba. Route 19. Someone there knows where Torres is keeping Papa. Lucía nodded, though fear still shook through her body. The night deepened around them, the stars blazing coldly over the plains. The smell of burnt grass drifted on the wind. Far off, sirens wailed, but too distant to be helpful. Too distant to be safe. Mateo scanned the darkness. We need wheels. Where do we find them? Lucía asked. Anywhere that isn't burning. They walked along the edge of the dirt field until they reached the road again. The asphalt was cracked, the yellow paint faded, but the surface felt like safety compared to what lay in the shadows. A faint rumble vibrated under Mateo's feet. He froze. Another vehicle. Coming fast. Headlights crested the horizon. Lucía grabbed his arm. No. Not again. But Mateo listened. The engine didn't roar like a cargo truck. It hummed, smoother, lighter. A pickup. Single cab. Old. Probably harmless. Probably. He pulled Lucía behind a concrete milestone marker and crouched low. The pickup slowed as it approached the crash site. Its tires crackled over broken glass and charred debris. Then it stopped. A door creaked open. A voice called out, tired, cautious, human. Hola, hey alguinahi. A woman's voice. Mateo rose slowly, hands raised. Aquí. We need help. The woman stepped into the headlights, mid-40s, wiry, sunburned skin, hair tied back in a messy bun. She wore a farmer's vest and carried an old revolver pointed at the ground, not at them. ¿Qué pasó aquí? She asked, shocked as her eyes traced the burning wreck. Mateo answered honestly. Trouble. We escaped it. She studied them, dirty, exhausted, smoke-stained. Children running from a nightmare. Then she nodded. Get in. Now. This road is going to fill with the wrong people soon. Lucía whispered, she believes us. Mateo guided her toward the truck. She believes danger. That's enough. They climbed in. The woman started driving immediately, tires crunching over gravel. I'm Inés, she said without looking at them. And you two are either very lucky, or very cursed. He bought us time. And we're not wasting it. Ahead, the highway shimmered like a dark scar cutting through the earth. Behind them, a faint red glow rose into the night sky. The barn was burning. The wind grew stronger as they reached the edge of the highway, a cold, dry gust rolling across the Argentine plains like the breath of something ancient. The sky above them had darkened into a bruised violet, storm clouds gathering without sound, as if even thunder didn't dare speak aloud. Mateo scanned the road. Empty. Dead. A two-lane strip of cracked asphalt stretching toward nothing and everything. Lucía wrapped her arms around herself. What now? Mateo didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing, the truck stop, the murderers, the old man, the flare, the fire. And beyond all of it, a single name burning like a wound. Torres. If they found Papa, if he was even still alive. Torres would be the one holding the knife. Mateo exhaled. We keep moving north. Toward Córdoba. Someone there will know something. Lucía frowned. How do you know? Mateo hesitated. Because he saw something he didn't tell her. Because inside the old man's jacket, right before he lit the flare, Mateo had seen a patch, a faded insignia of a trucking cooperative called Los Comandantes del Viento. And etched below it, Córdoba Ruta 19. The old man knew where they needed to go. We just keep going, Mateo said. A faint rumble broke the silence. Lucía stiffened. Car. Truck, Mateo corrected, because the sound was deeper, rolling, aggressive. They scrambled off the asphalt and down into the ditch, their bodies pressed flat against dirt and dried weeds. The rumble grew louder, headlights cresting the distant horizon like twin suns rising from the earth. But something was wrong about the way the lights moved. They weren't steady. They swerved, slow at first, then violently. The truck veered left. Then right. Then right again, too hard. A horn bellowed. Tires screamed. The truck fishtailed across the road, sparks flying as metal scraped asphalt. It slid sideways, toppled, and rolled into the field with a deafening crash, tearing a trail of fire across the dry grass. Lucía clamped her hands over her ears. Mateo! Stay down. Flames caught quickly, swallowing the grass like hungry mouths. The overturned truck groaned, the metallic death cry of something that once had purpose. Mateo watched, breath held, as a door burst open. A man crawled out. Coughing. Bleeding. Armed. He staggered to his feet and looked around, dazed, then directly toward the ditch where they hid. Mateo's heart stopped. The man lifted his gun. Salgan, he screamed. I know you're there. Lucía whimpered. Mateo squeezed her hand. Run when I say. Don't look back. Mateo. Don't argue. The gunman limped closer. 10 meters. 8. 5. Mateo burst from the ditch, sprinting straight at the man. Hey! The man swung the gun toward him. But his grip was weak. His aim shaking. His breath slashed with pain. The shot fired wide, disappearing into the plains. Mateo slammed into him, knocking the weapon loose. It skidded across the ground. The man gasped, clutching a stab wound in his side. They left me, those bastards left me. He collapsed onto his knees. Lucía emerged cautiously, trembling. Mateo grabbed the man by the collar. Who left you? Torres. The man laughed bitterly, blood spilling from his lips. You don't get it, you don't know what's coming. What's coming? Mateo demanded. The man coughed, shaking violently. Torres, he's not the one you should fear. He. His eyes widened, not at Mateo, but at something behind him. Madre. Mateo turned. A wall of flames, massive, alive, was racing through the dry grass, fed by wind and fuel spilled from the wrecked truck. A wildfire, sudden and ravenous, sweeping straight toward them. Lucía screamed. Mateo grabbed her wrist. Move! The dying man's voice rose in a final, broken cry. You can't escape the dust road. The fire surged. The truck's fuel tank detonated with a thunderous blast. The world turned white. And then everything was running, burning, roaring. Mateo held Lucía as they sprinted blindly through the dark plains, the inferno chasing them like a living monster with burning teeth. And far behind them, through the veil of fire and smoke, engines rumbled again, more trucks, more men, more hunters. The dust road was awake. And it wanted its children back. The firestorm swallowed half the horizon before they stopped running. Mateo's lungs burned. Lucía collapsed beside a fallen fence post, coughing hard, eyes wide and glassy. Smoke still curled over the plains behind them like a black serpent twisting in the sky. They were alive, barely. The wildfire raged where the truck had exploded, its glow flickering across the vast empty fields like the pulse of a dying world. Lucía wiped her eyes. Mateo, who were those men? He didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was terrible. Because he had recognized the color of their jackets, even beneath the soot and firelight. Black and dust brown. The same as the men who took their father. Mateo stared at the fire. They work for Torres. Lucía's voice trembled. So, that means. Papa was with them. Mateo clenched his jaw. Not with them. Taken by them. And the man who died, she swallowed. What did he mean? We can't escape the dust road. Mateo didn't know. But he felt the meaning. It wasn't a road. It was a system. A network. An entire underworld carved into the highways, rest stops, abandoned gas stations, storage yards, illegal transport routes. A labyrinth that swallowed families whole. He put his hand gently on Lucía's shoulder. We keep moving north. Córdoba. Route 19. Someone there knows where Torres is keeping Papa. Lucía nodded, though fear still shook through her body. The night deepened around them, the stars blazing coldly over the plains. The smell of burnt grass drifted on the wind. Far off, sirens wailed, but too distant to be helpful. Too distant to be safe. Mateo scanned the darkness. We need wheels. Where do we find them? Lucía asked. Anywhere that isn't burning. They walked along the edge of the dirt field until they reached the road again. The asphalt was cracked, the yellow paint faded, but the surface felt like safety compared to what lay in the shadows. A faint rumble vibrated under Mateo's feet. He froze. Another vehicle. Coming fast. Headlights crested the horizon. Lucía grabbed his arm. No. Not again. But Mateo listened. The engine didn't roar like a cargo truck. It hummed, smoother, lighter. A pickup. Single cab. Old. Probably harmless. Probably. He pulled Lucía behind a concrete milestone marker and crouched low. The pickup slowed as it approached the crash site. Its tires crackled over broken glass and charred debris. Then it stopped. A door creaked open. A voice called out, tired, cautious, human. Hola, hey alguinahi. A woman's voice. Mateo rose slowly, hands raised. A key. We need help. The woman stepped into the headlights, mid-40s, wiry, sunburned skin, hair tied back in a messy bun. She wore a farmer's vest and carried an old revolver pointed at the ground, not at them. ¿Qué pasó aquí? She asked, shocked as her eyes traced the burning wreck. Mateo answered honestly. Trouble. We escaped it. She studied them, Dirty, exhausted, smoke-stained. Children running from a nightmare. Then she nodded. Get in. Now. This road is going to fill with the wrong people soon. Lucía whispered, she believes us. Mateo guided her toward the truck. She believes danger. That's enough. They climbed in. The woman started driving immediately, tires crunching over gravel. I'm Inés, she said without looking at them. And you two are either very lucky, or very cursed. Lucía's voice broke. We're looking for our father. They took him. Inés didn't respond right away. She simply said. If Torres is involved, then you're not cursed. You're hunted. The pickup sped into the night, rattling over the lonely Argentine highway. And in the rearview mirror, the burning sky slowly vanished, replaced by deeper, darker shadows ahead. The dust road wasn't behind them. It was waiting up ahead. Alive. Watching. Calling them deeper into its core. The pickup rattled along the uneven road, its headlights slicing through the darkness like a pair of trembling blades. Inside, the smell of dust, old leather, and diesel filled the cab. Inés gripped the wheel tight, eyes fixed on the endless stretch ahead. Lucía leaned her head against the window, watching the night blur past. Señora, how do you know Torres? Inés's jaw tightened. I don't, she said at first. Then, after a beat. Not personally. Mateo watched her closely. But you know of him. Inés exhaled slowly. Everyone who drives these roads knows of him. She downshifted to avoid a washed-out section of asphalt. He controls the dust road. The smuggling routes. The ghost convoys. The drivers who disappear. The cargo that never reaches its destination. Lucía whispered, and the people they take. Inés's eyes flicked toward her in the mirror. Especially them. The engine hummed for a long moment before Inés continued. Torres used to be a trucker. A good one. A legend, even. Then something happened, no one knows what, and he vanished for years. When he returned, she shook her head. He wasn't the same man. He built an empire out here. One nobody sees unless he wants them to. Mateo swallowed. So if he took our father, where would he bring him? El Cruz de las Sombras. Mateo frowned. The crossing of shadows? Yes. A junction in the middle of nowhere. No lights. No maps. A place where convoys switch cargo, where no police dare approach. Some say that is where Torres does his sorting. Sorting what? Inés's voice cracked slightly. People, niño. Lucía's breath caught in her throat. No, our father. We don't know anything for certain, Inés said firmly. And I'll get you close enough to find out. Mateo stared ahead. The horizon was a deep purple bruise, unbroken except by occasional fence lines and the silhouettes of abandoned barns. But something felt wrong. The night felt aware. As if the plains were listening. Inés, Mateo said slowly. Are we being followed? She didn't look surprised by the question. Only tired. Look back, she said. Mateo turned. At first, he saw nothing. Just darkness. Then, a faint glint. Then another. Then a third. 3 distant dots of light, barely visible, but growing. Lucía saw them too. Mateo, what is that? He felt the cold wash over him. Headlights. Multiple. Running without hesitation. Running without fear. Running directly toward them. 3 vehicles, he whispered. At least. Inés muttered a curse. They found you faster than I expected. Mateo's heart hammered. Can your truck outrun them? This? She slapped the dashboard. She's old but loyal. But against men like them. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The lights were closer now. Too close. Lucía clutched Mateo's arm. What do we do? Inés floored the accelerator. The pickup roared, shaking, rattling, coughing, but speeding up. The road narrowed, cracks racing under the wheels. A mile ahead, the terrain rose into a long, sloping hill. They'll catch us uphill, Mateo said. I know, Inés replied. So what's the plan? She smiled, a dangerous, reckless smile. We don't go up the hill. She yanked the wheel right. The truck veered off the asphalt and plunged into the dark fields. Mateo and Lucía screamed, grabbing onto anything they could. The truck bounced violently over rocks and weeds. Dust shot up behind them in a blinding trail. The headlights behind them scattered momentarily, the pursuing vehicles confused by the sudden move, but one of them reacted fast and followed. Then another. Then the third. They're not stopping, Lucía cried. They won't, Inés said. Mateo looked ahead, the ground sloped downward, toward a cluster of dry ravines carved like scars into the earth. Inés. Hold on. The ravine loomed in the darkness, a jagged gash in the field, 10 meters deep. Inés, we're going to drive into that. Not if we make the jump. The what? But it was too late. She pushed the truck to its limit. The ravine rushed toward them. Lucía screamed. Mateo braced. Inés didn't blink. The truck hit the final mound of dirt. Lifted. Flew. And for a moment, time stopped. Dust hung in the air like frozen sparks. The world was weightless. Gravity paused. Then the truck slammed onto the far side of the ravine, skidding, fishtailing, fighting to stay upright. They were alive. Behind them, the first pursuit truck reached the ravine too fast. Its front wheels lifted. Then dipped. Then vanished as the entire vehicle plunged into the darkness below with a metallic scream. The second swerved, clipping the edge, nearly tumbling in. The third truck braked hard, stopping just before the drop. Mateo gasped for breath. Lucía sobbed into her hands. Inés exhaled slowly. 2 down, she whispered. 1 left. Then she looked at Mateo in the rearview mirror. Hope you're ready, Niño, because the dust road just declared war. The truck roared across the uneven terrain, each bump threatening to snap the suspension in half. The night air tore past them, cold and sharp. Behind them, the single remaining pursuit truck crawled along the ravine's edge, searching desperately for a crossing. Inés didn't slow down. Where are we going? Mateo shouted over the engine and rattling chassis. Somewhere they don't follow, she answered. That doesn't sound real. It barely is. They hit a small rise, the truck bouncing so violently Lucía nearly slammed her head on the roof. Careful. Mateo grabbed her. I'm trying. Lucía yelled. The plains around them unfurled in low shadows, old fence posts, dried irrigation ditches, abandoned farm equipment half swallowed by weeds. This was the forgotten Argentina, the places the dust road thrived in. Inés pointed ahead. You see that? Mateo squinted. A faint glow. A cluster of lights in the middle of nowhere. Lucía's eyes widened. A town? No town, Inés said. A sanctuary. Mateo frowned. Sanctuary? Inés nodded. Las Piedras. They crested a low ridge, and the full view appeared, a scattered settlement of trailers, metal shacks, improvised homes welded together from old truck beds. Lanterns flickered between them. Smoke rose from a few chimneys. People sat outside around fires, talking quietly, watching the night like hunters watching open plains. Mateo stared. Who are they? Inés slowed the truck. Ghost drivers. Retired. Hiding. Men and women who escaped the dust road alive. Not many. Lucía whispered. Escaped? From Torres? If they speak of him at all, Inés said, they call him El Lobo de la Ruta. The wolf of the road. Mateo felt a shiver down his spine. As they approached, a few figures stood up near the fires, hard silhouettes, scarred faces, men whose eyes had seen things no one should. Inés honked twice. A signal. A tall man stepped forward. Gray beard. Leather coat. Cold eyes. He approached the driver's side window as Inés rolled it down. Back again, Inés, he said. His voice was gravel. You weren't expected. Neither were they. She tilted her head toward Mateo and Lucía. Kids. Trouble behind them. The man leaned closer, examining Mateo with unsettling intensity. Who's hunting you? Mateo answered without fear. Torres. The camp went silent. The man inhaled sharply. Inside. Now. He opened a gate made from welded truck bumpers, and Inés drove in. As soon as they parked, the tall man gestured to the others. Cover the truck. Hide it. Watch the horizon. He motioned for the kids to follow him into a large metal container converted into a safe house. Once inside, he locked the door. Only then did he speak. My name is Rivas. I used to run for Torres. I know what he does with men he takes. Lucía tightened her fists. Where is our father? Rivas didn't answer immediately. He sat down, stared into a small lantern flame, and finally said. Your father is alive. I heard his name 2 nights ago. Mateo's heart pounded. Where? Rivas swallowed. At El Cruz de las Sombras. The crossing of shadows. The same place Inés had warned about. Mateo stepped forward. We need to go there. Rivas grabbed his shoulder with surprising strength. No. Listen to me, Chico. You don't understand. No one goes to the crossing and comes back. We will. You won't, Rivas said, eyes narrowing. Not alone. Lucía's voice trembled. Help us, please. Rivas looked at her, saw the desperation, the fire, the fear. He exhaled a long, broken sigh. Fine. I'll take you part of the way. But understand this. He leaned forward. If Torres took your father to the crossing, he's either very important to their plans, or very dangerous to them. Mateo whispered. What plans? Rivas met his eyes. The dust road is preparing something. A movement. A migration. A mass transport unlike anything before. Lucía's voice was thin. What are they transporting? Rivas stood, pacing slowly. People. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Mateo's blood turned to ice. Why? Rivas didn't look back. Because the dust road doesn't just hide crime. He paused. It hides entire worlds. Suddenly, someone pounded on the metal door. Rivas froze. Inés whispered a curse. Mateo's stomach dropped. A voice, muffled but clear, growled from outside. Open up. Now. Rivas shook his head. That's not Torres' men. Lucía whispered, then who? Rivas unlocked a small hatch and peeked. His face drained of color. Truckers, he said quietly. Which ones? Mateo asked. Rivas swallowed hard. The ones who never stopped working for Torres. The pounding grew louder. Open the door. Rivas grabbed a shotgun off the wall. Mateo stepped beside him. Lucía backed up, trembling. Rivas cocked the shotgun and whispered. Welcome, niños. To the real dust road. The pounding on the metal door grew harder, more violent, the hinges rattling under each blow. Dust trickled from the ceiling with every impact. Rivas raised a finger to his lips. Silence. Even breathing felt dangerous. Lucía clung to Mateo's arm, her body shaking. Inés stood near the back wall, quietly checking the bullets in her revolver, only 3 left. The voice outside growled again. We know you're in there. Open it. Another, heavier voice joined in. You're harboring runaways. Torres wants them. Rivas muttered under his breath, bastards. They never stop. Mateo whispered, can we sneak out the back? Rivas shook his head. No back. This used to be a shipping container, remember? One way in, one way out. The pounding intensified, booming like thunder, bending the metal inward. Lucía covered her ears. They're going to break it. Rivas stepped forward, gripping the shotgun tighter. No, he said. They want us to panic. They'll wait until we do. But the next blow nearly tore the lock off entirely. Inés hissed, what's your plan then, viejo? Rivas didn't answer for a moment. Then he moved to a rusted locker in the corner and tore it open, revealing a red lever and a thick cable running across the ceiling. Mateo frowned. What is that? Rivas smirked grimly. A gift from a paranoid friend. He pulled the lever. Nothing happened. Lucía blinked. What did that do? Rivas pointed upward. Roof hatch. Mateo looked up. He hadn't noticed it, disguised with dust and grime, a small square panel with bolts. Go. Rivas ordered. Up and out. Inés grabbed a crowbar and jumped onto an old crate, forcing the hatch open. Cold night air rushed in. Lucía climbed first. Mateo followed. Below, the metal door bent inward with a deafening shriek. The attackers were almost in. Rivas shoved Inés upward. Move. I'll hold them. No, she snapped. You're coming too. I'm old, not stupid. You climb, I cover. The door crashed inward. 3 men in dusty coats surged inside, armed with pistols and metal pipes. Their eyes were wild, desperate, men who lived on the road too long. Rivas fired the shotgun once. The blast echoed through the container, sending one of the attackers sprawling. Go. Rivas yelled. Inés climbed through the hatch, panting. Mateo reached down. Rivas. Come on. But Rivas didn't move. He gave a small, sad smile, the kind men give when they know they've already made their choice. Find your father, Chico. Break the road. End Torres. Another attacker lunged at him. Rivas rammed the shotgun into the man's chest and fired point blank. Go. Mateo's throat tightened. But. Inés yanked him upward. We can't save him. Lucía sobbed as Inés pulled them both onto the roof. Below, the fight exploded in metal echoes and screams. They stood on top of the container, breathless, the night wind ripping through their clothes. Fires burned in scattered barrels around Las Piedras, but the settlement was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Mateo scanned the camp below. The figures around the fires weren't sitting anymore. They were standing. Watching. Dozens of them. Faces hard, shadows deep. Lucía whispered, why are they staring at us? Inés's voice was tight. Because they're deciding if they'll help us, or sell us. A figure stepped forward from the darkness, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long dust coat. His face was covered with a bandana, only his eyes visible. Cold, unblinking eyes. Mateo felt his heart pound. Who's that? Inés swallowed. That's Calderon. Who is? The man who runs Las Piedras. And the one Torres trusts the least. The man raised his hand, making a fist. At that signal, every ghost driver in the camp slowly lifted a weapon: pipes, old rifles, sawed-off shotguns, knives made from truck springs. They weren't rushing toward the container. But they weren't leaving either. They waited. Inés whispered. Mierda. They know who you are. And they want to see what you're worth. Mateo stepped forward on the roof edge, staring down at the sea of silent drivers. My name is Mateo Diaz, he shouted. Torres took our father. We're taking him back. You can help us, or you can get out of our way. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Calderon tilted his head. Then he said, voice deep and calm. If you want to survive the dust road, Chico, you'll have to prove you can drive it. Mateo frowned. What does that mean? Calderon snapped his fingers. Two men rolled forward something massive from a nearby shed. A truck. A huge one, old, beaten, but powerful. Calderon's eyes glinted. If you want answers. If you want your father. If you want to face Torres. He pointed at the truck. Then you take the wheel. Tonight. With all of us watching. Lucía gasped. Mateo clenched his fists. Inés whispered. Madurum, this is bad. Calderon continued. This is the only way to reach the crossing of shadows alive. Show us you can drive the road. He smiled behind the bandana. Or die on it. Mateo stood frozen on the container roof, staring at the truck as though it were alive. Its headlights were off, but even in darkness it radiated threat, a machine built for punishment, steel scarred by 1,000 kilometers of unforgiving road. Lucía whispered, Mateo, you can't. He didn't answer. Because some part of him already knew. Calderon raised his hand again. The camp lights flickered on, generators coughing to life, floodlights bathing the yard in harsh white. The truck came into full view. It was monstrous. Long nose. Reinforced grille. Thick tires caked in ancient mud. The words La Viuda Negra were scratched into the door, the Black Widow. Mateo climbed down from the container slowly. Inés grabbed his shoulder. This is what Torres does. He breaks boys and turns them into drivers. Mateo met her eyes. Then I'll break his road instead. Calderon watched, unmoving, as Mateo walked toward the truck. You ever driven something like that? The man asked calmly. Mateo shook his head. Then tonight you learn, or the road eats you. Calderon snapped his fingers. Men chained the truck to two others in front and one behind, a brutal formation meant to test nerves and control. A gauntlet. Lucía ran to Mateo and hugged him tightly. Come back, she whispered into his chest. Please. He held her. I will. Then he climbed into the cab. The seat was cracked. The steering wheel worn smooth by decades of gloves and sweat. The dashboard glowed dull red, alive with trembling gauges. The engine rumbled when he turned the key, low, hungry, restless. Like a beast waking up. Calderon's voice echoed from below. Rules are simple. You drive through the ravine pass at full speed. Sharp turns. No lights. No mercy. If you lose control. He made a slicing motion across his throat. You won't need saving. Mateo swallowed. Outside, Lucía and Inés stood with the others, not breathing. Calderon signaled. The chains were dropped. The engines of the other trucks roared. Mateo gripped the wheel. The Black Widow lurched forward. They rolled into the darkness. Within seconds, the terrain brutalized the suspension, rocks smashing against the undercarriage. The truck in front kicked up blinding dust. Mateo couldn't see. He drove blind. Every instinct screamed slow down. He did the opposite. The speed twisted into something unreal, the world becoming streaks of silver and black. Cliffs loomed. Gaps flashed past. A sudden curve. The truck in front skidded, nearly flipping. Mateo yanked the wheel, the Black Widow fishtailed, then snapped back enough distance to avoid collision by centimeters. Cold sweat drenched his back. Lucía screamed from somewhere behind him in his mind. Focus, he whispered to himself. The ravine narrowed, walls of black stone closing in around them. Then came the test. A shattered bridge. Or what had once been one. Two halves barely connected by rusted steel beams. The lead truck hesitated. Mateo didn't. He floored it. The truck leapt. Metal screamed. The widow slammed onto the far side in a storm of sparks. He was still alive. Behind him, a crash. A scream cut short. Then only silence. One truck didn't make it. Mateo didn't look back. He couldn't. By the time they returned to Las Piedras, the ghost drivers were no longer silent. They were waiting. Calderon approached as Mateo climbed out, legs shaking. "You didn't blink," Calderon said. Mateo swallowed. "I didn't breathe either." The man nodded once. "Good. Then you're ready." Lucía rushed to him, sobbing with relief, burying her face into his chest. "You're alive, you're alive." Inés smiled weakly. Calderon turned. "We leave in an hour." Mateo looked up sharply. "For where?" Calderon's eyes hardened. "For the heart of the road." He pointed toward the horizon. El Cruz de las Sombras. They left Las Piedras without ceremony. No goodbyes. No speeches. Just engines coughing awake in the dead of night. The Black Widow led the convoy, Mateo at the wheel, Lucía curled beside him half asleep, Inés riding shotgun. Behind them followed 3 other trucks, silent shadows carrying men who'd made 1,000 bad choices and finally chosen one good one. Calderon drove in the second truck. The road dissolved into dirt within minutes. Then into dust. Then into nothing but memory, faint tracks only visible if you knew how to read the land. Inés leaned toward Mateo. "From this point on, we don't exist." Mateo nodded. Lucía stirred. "Are we close?" Inés didn't lie. "We're getting closer to something." The convoy moved through ghost towns with shattered windows and wind-blown signs. Past rusted buses stripped of parts. Rolled beside dry canals where bones sometimes peeked through the dirt like pale fingers. No stars. Only darkness. They reached a place where even the wind stopped blowing. The road, if it could still be called that, narrowed between 2 massive rock faces that leaned inward like a mouth ready to close. Calderon's voice crackled over the radio. "Ravine Pass. From here on, no retreat." Mateo swallowed. The widow crawled into the giant stone throat. The engine echoed horribly between rock walls only meters apart. Stones scraped the sides of the truck. Every wrong movement could wedge them permanently. Lucía whispered a prayer Mateo hadn't heard since childhood. The ravine bent sharply. Then sharply again. Then opened suddenly. And the world changed. They emerged into a massive basin. Flat. Colorless. Dead. In the center of the basin stood the impossible. A city of trucks. Hundreds of them. Parked in perfect order. Some burned out. Some pristine. Some half-eaten by rust and sand. Floodlights glowed atop tall steel towers. Generators hummed like distant thunder. Barracks built from shipping containers stacked like towers. Fuel tanks. Watch posts. Fences topped with wire. And at the heart of it all. A massive black structure, the largest truck Mateo had ever seen, elevated on steel supports like a throne on wheels. Lucía whispered, barely audible. "Papa." Mateo followed her gaze. And there, between two guards, kneeling with wrists bound, was their father. Mateo's chest seized. He opened the door before Inés could stop him. But Calderon's voice snapped through the radio. "Don't." Mateo froze mid-step. Calderon climbed out of his truck slowly and stood by the door. "Look careful, Chico," he said. "This place kills reacting men. It spares planning ones." Lucía choked back a sob. "He's right there." Calderon nodded. "And if you walk now, you die. And your father dies with you." Mateo clenched his fists. "So what do we do?" Calderon exhaled slowly. "We become invisible." Night began changing. Vehicles rolled in and out of the crossing. Men with radios. Armed guards. Cigarette smoke curling through the floodlights. Calderon whispered. "We blend. We wait. We listen." Hours passed like years. Mateo memorized patrol patterns. He watched as his father was dragged to different tents, different trucks, questioned, beaten, but he never cried out. Never begged. Mateo realized something horrible. His father wasn't a victim. He was resisting something. And Torres hadn't killed him because he needed him for something specific. Then, movement. The massive truck throne rumbled. Its engine awakened. Guards stood to attention. A figure emerged from the top platform. Tall. Calm. Surrounded by silence. Lucía whispered in terror. "Torres." Mateo finally saw the man who'd torn their family from the world. And Torres slowly lifted his head. And looked directly at Mateo. Even from across the basin. He knew. Torres didn't shout. He didn't point. He didn't need to. His eyes, dark and steady, locked onto Mateo across the basin like a rifle sight. And then. He smiled. Not wide. Not cruel. Confident. The kind of smile a man gives when he's already won. Calderon muttered, "Mierda, he sensed you." Mateo whispered, "How?" Calderon didn't answer. Torres raised one hand slowly. Every engine in the crossing cut. Silence slammed into the basin like a wall. Then Torres spoke, his voice carried through speakers mounted on the towers, deep and controlled, every syllable echoing. "You came a long way, Mateo." Lucía gasped. Mateo's stomach twisted. Torres had known his name. Torres continued, calmly. "Most people take months to find this place. You took days." A murmur rippled through the camp. Torres stepped forward. "I admire that." Mateo's father was thrown to his feet in front of the platform. Mateo's heart stopped. Torres placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your father." He glanced down at the broken man beneath him. "Is a very inconvenient man." Mateo screamed. "Let him go." Guards raised rifles instantly. Lucía cried out. Calderon stepped in front of them slightly, not blocking, but ready. Torres looked amused. "You see," he said into the microphone. "This is what families do. They invade entire systems for one man." Torres leaned down toward Mateo's father. "But your father didn't steal from me." He looked back at Mateo. "He stole me." Silence ripped through the basin. Mateo trembled. "What does that even mean?" Torres's eyes darkened. "Your father ran my earliest routes. He built parts of the dust road with me before I became what you see now." Lucía whispered. "Papa helped him?" Torres raised a hand. "He helped build roads. Not monsters. Not graves. Then one day, Torres continued, your father decided the road had become a graveyard. His voice sharpened. And he tried to burn it. Torres gestured. Men carried out crates. Opened them. Inside, documents. Maps. Photos. Proof of trafficking. Of smuggling. Of dead children. Mateo's father coughed. You forgot one thing, Torres, he rasped. Conscience. Torres's jaw tightened, just slightly. Then he nodded. Yes. I did. Lucía sobbed. Mateo roared. Let him go or I swear. Torres cut him off. You'll do nothing, he said calmly. Then. But I will give you a choice. Mateo froze. Torres extended one finger. You leave now, alive, and I keep him. Then a second finger. Or you stay, and try to take him. Torres smiled softly. And the road decides which of you deserves to survive. Mateo took one step forward. Calderon grabbed his arm. This is suicide, he hissed. Mateo shook him off. Lucía clutched Mateo's sleeve. Please, don't leave him. Mateo's voice broke. I won't. Every loaded weapon in the crossing lifted a fraction. Torres smiled wider. Then welcome, to the road. Torres snapped his fingers. The floodlights shut off. Darkness swallowed the basin. Engines exploded to life. Spotlights sliced through dust clouds. Sirens blared. From the shadows surged trucks, roaring beasts awakened for a blood sacrifice. Calderon shouted. Get to the widow. Mateo grabbed Lucía's hand. Inés ran beside them. Gunfire cracked. Men screamed. The dust road erupted. Mateo and Lucía sprinted through chaos, headlights flashing like lightning, engines howling like wolves. They dived into the Black Widow's cab. Mateo turned the key. The engine answered like a war cry. Calderon jumped into the second truck. Inés leapt into the back, firing at pursuers. Torres' voice thundered through the chaos. Run, Mateo. Show me how far blood takes you. Mateo slammed the throttle. The convoy exploded out of the crossing as Torres' fleet chased. The dust road opened its mouth. And swallowed them whole. He widow tore across the flats like a wounded animal, engine screaming, suspension groaning as the dust road swallowed wheels and spit out fire. Behind them, Torres' fleet fanned out in predatory formation, headlights like a constellation of hungry stars ripping through the dark Argentine wasteland. Lucía braced herself against the dashboard. Mateo, they're gaining. Mateo's hands were slick with sweat on the wheel. I know. I know. Bullets cracked past the windshield. One slammed into the hood. Metal screamed. Inés fired through the back window until the rifle clicked empty. Out. Calderon's voice barked through the radio. Bridge ahead. Half destroyed. If you cross it first, you have a chance. Mateo spotted it, an old river crossing barely clinging to existence beneath the dust storm. Broken beams. Gaps wide enough to swallow tires. They were almost there. Mateo hit the accelerator harder. The widow leapt onto the bridge like a steel prayer. The world became vibration and wind and terror. Under them, nothing. Lucía closed her eyes. The bridge cracked. Behind them, boom. One of Torres' trucks misjudged the angle, it smashed through rotten support and vanished in a spiral of flame and dust. Torres' men slowed. Just enough. Mateo cleared the last missing plank and the widow roared onto open land. They didn't stop for 40 miles. Only when the engine began to sputter did Mateo pull off near the ruins of an abandoned way station. Silence fell like wreckage. Mateo leaned against the wheel, chest heaving. Lucía shook violently. Inés dropped from the cargo bed, her face streaked with blood and dust. Calderon's truck pulled in behind them, radiator steaming. He jumped down. "You alive?" Mateo nodded. "Barely." Lucía whispered. "My father is still there." Calderon didn't answer. He just stared toward the horizon where the dust road vanished into dark. They didn't sleep. They couldn't. The way station was bone-dry and hollow, ghosts of truckers scratching in the concrete. Inés took first watch. Mateo cleaned his hands with sand. It didn't help. Lucía sat alone, knees drawn to her chest. Mateo went to her. "I'm going back." Lucía looked up. Her eyes were not crying anymore. They were empty. "You'll die." "Maybe." She stood. "Then I die with you." Calderon interrupted. "No. You don't." They turned. Calderon pulled out a folded map. He placed it on the hood of the Widow. "There's one way into the crossing Torres doesn't control." Mateo leaned forward. "A maintenance artery under the basin. Built when this place still moved water, not blood." Inés straightened. "You serious?" Calderon nodded. "I worked it once, years ago." Lucía whispered. "Where does it lead?" Calderon met her eyes. "Directly under the platform." Mateo swallowed. "Then we go tonight." Calderon shook his head. "No. We go at dawn." Mateo bristled. "Why wait?" Calderon replied quietly. "Because dawn is when men get tired. And monsters forget to look down." When dawn came, the desert was pale and bruised, like the world after a fight. They drove in silence. The entrance was a rusted pipe field half buried in sand. Calderon kicked aside debris. "We crawl." Mateo went first. The tunnel stank of iron and old rain. Lucía followed, her hand gripping Mateo's ankle when panic crept. Then Inés. Then Calderon. They moved in darkness broken only by the whisper of breathing. Ahead. Light. They climbed. They emerged beneath the crossing. Above them, boots. Voices. Generators humming. Mateo's heart hammered. Calderon nodded. Above them. Torres. Mateo moved like a ghost. He climbed the understructure and reached the platform's edge. He peeked up. Torres stood there upright, immaculate even in dust, infinity in his posture. Mateo's father lay bound beside him. Mateo's world narrowed down to one heartbeat. Now. Mateo climbed. He rose into the open. Gun leveled. Torres turned slowly. Ah. His smile returned. I wondered how long it would take. Mateo pulled the trigger. Click. Empty chamber. Torres laughed softly. Still a boy. Torres raised his own gun. And then. A shot. Torres' body jerked. Blood sprayed across the platform. Torres staggered. Inés stood behind him, rifle smoking. I never miss twice, she said. Chaos erupted. Mateo rushed his father. Lucía screamed and cut ropes. Guards opened fire. Calderon threw smoke grenades. The crossing vanished into fog and fury. Mateo lifted his father. He's alive. Torres screamed in rage from the smoke. Run. They ran. Gunfire tore the platform apart. Explosion thundered. The dust road howled. They dove into the tunnel. They crawled fast. Fast. Faster. Torres' men fired down after them. Dust collapsed in sheets. The tunnel groaned. Lucía cried. The shaft is coming down. Mateo carried his father. Inés dragged Calderon. Stone crashed behind them. Air vanished. Light died. Then. Daylight. They burst from the far end as the tunnel behind them collapsed into nothing. The dust road closed its mouth. Mateo laid his father down outside under open sky. His chest rose. Barely. Mateo sobbed. Lucía held him. Inés collapsed. Calderon knelt. That was when they heard it. An engine. One engine. Slow. Patient. Torres. He appeared over the crest, face bloodied, eyes alive. He took one step. Then another. Then he dropped to one knee. Torres coughed. Spat blood. Smiled. You can't kill a road, he whispered. Mateo rose. He walked to Torres. Torres stared up. Do you know what you are, boy? Mateo shook his head. Tears burned. Torres smiled wearily. A crack. Mateo knelt. Then he said. No. And fired. Once. The dust swallowed Torres. The road fell silent. Mateo stood there long after the echo died. The dust did not move. The desert did not speak. For the first time since childhood. The road was quiet. Lucía came behind him and wrapped her arms around his shaking shoulders. It's over, she whispered. Mateo didn't answer. Because some things don't end. They just stop chasing you. They moved his father before nightfall. Gently. Like glass. Calderon and Inés built a fire from scrap wood and copper wire pulled from the wreckage. The flames burned blue and gold. Mateo's father barely breathed. Lucía cleaned the blood from his face with water from her last bottle. Mateo sat beside him the entire night. He never slept. At dawn. His father woke. Just for a moment. His eyes struggled open. Mateo leaned in. Papa. I'm here. A weak hand found his sleeve. Fingers closed. His father tried to speak. Nothing came. Only breath. Mateo cried silently, pressing his forehead to his father's. I found you, he whispered. I didn't give up. His father's lips curved just slightly. Then his eyes softened. And closed. For real this time. Lucía covered him with her jacket. Inés looked away. Calderon bowed his head. No one spoke for a long time. Because there are no words for roads that steal fathers. They buried him beneath an unmarked sky. Mateo placed a piece of the widow's shattered mirror at the head of the grave. So he could see the horizon forever. Lucía buried her necklace beside him. Inés laid down a bullet she never fired. Calderon offered nothing. Just silence. The deepest tribute. They stayed 2 days. Then they left. Because the dust road does not like witnesses. Weeks later, they reached Córdoba under a new name and borrowed faces. Calderon disappeared into a dringer's life. Inés opened a knife shop no one ever tried to rob. Lucía enrolled in a nursing school with papers that only existed because Mateo willed them into reality. Mateo worked nights. Laundry. Loading docks. Anywhere hands were needed and questions were not. They never spoke of Torres. They never said his name. He became dust. As all tyrants do. Years passed. Not loudly. Quietly. Like sand. Lucía healed children. Mateo fixed things. Broken engines. Broken men. Broken futures. Sometimes, the road came back in dreams. Engines screaming through blood-colored dust. Torres smiling in the rearview mirror. His father calling his name from a place that no longer existed. Mateo always woke in sweat. Lucía always touched his face. "You're here," she would say. "That's enough." And slowly. It was. On the 10th anniversary. Mateo drove alone. Far. He parked the widow's rebuilt engine by the same flat horizon. He walked into the sand. He knelt. And placed his father's old watch into the dirt. It had never worked. But he kept it anyway. He whispered. "You stopped the road for me." Wind passed over the dunes. For just a second. Mateo could have sworn he felt a hand at his back. Steady. Warm. Gone. He stood. Walked back. Drove home. That night. He dreamed of a different road. One without blood. One without ashes. One that led somewhere real. His father was there. Smiling. Young again. Whole. He did not speak. He didn't have to. Mateo woke with peace in his lungs. Lucía slept beside him. The city breathed. Life moved. Normal. Fragile. Beautiful. Somewhere in Argentina. Travelers still whisper about a road that eats families. About a man who once owned it. About a boy who shattered it. They lie about the details. They always do. But one thing they get right. The dust road was real. And it did not win. Because sometimes. Children do.